All right, you guys, welcome back to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets podcast. I've got Dr. Sten Ericson with me today. We're going to be talking a little bit about how to get everyone involved in marketing on your team, because that's oftentimes a big challenge. A lot of times the doctor will be the one to present an idea and the team's kind of groaning in the background, not sure if they want to get behind another initiative. But when they do, it's transformational. And so we're going to get into that a little bit. But first, want to welcome Dr. Erickson. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. This is a topic that I feel like we touch on every once in a while, but it's not very well understood. And so it's one of those things that I really do feel like it can be a game changer for a practice if they can enlist all of their team members behind marketing and behind that common vision. So but let's start first. Stan, why don't you give us take a few minutes, give us your background so people know kind of where you're coming from.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So I'm in California in Santa Barbara County. We have, to say four or five, because we actually just let one go. We need to bring on a couple more.
Yeah.
Um, so the little trajectory on my practice, I got out of school, worked in kind of more of a clinic atmosphere, which a lot of people did, and realized very quickly that was not where I wanted to stay.
Yeah.
But it was a great learning experience for me as far as the, learning how to turn and burn and all that good stuff. Came up to Santa Barbara and pretty quickly associated and then partnered up with a doctor. Bought him out after 9 months or a year, and within 3 months, the doctor next to me actually passed away, and so his wife asked me to take over. And then about a year later, I got second practice, and then a year later after that, I bought another practice to merge with the second practice, and then kind of one, two, three, and then that was kind of the trajectory. It wasn't really not necessarily something I planned on exactly like that. I was definitely open to it, but it was exciting, and it
Yeah.
still is, and I'm still really happy with the trajectory we're on. And the plan is right now, hopefully, probably another practice in the next year or two.
Mhm.
Maybe another one at some point. But we have no ambitions to be the next Smile Brands or anything like that. But we
Yeah.
are kind of really enjoying kind of growing as a group, and all my doctors are partners, and even have a non-dentist partner as well. So they're all earning equity, kind of yearly on a yearly basis right now. So
That's awesome.
that's us in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a ride too. I mean, just things happen, I mean, and you don't always, like I said, you don't always plan it for it, but if you're open-minded, oftentimes those can turn into major opportunities, that bring some really cool initiatives,
Yeah.
cool things down the
Yeah,
road. So
life is what happens. Let's say life is what happens when you're making other plans, right?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way to put it. Well, cool. Well, let's get into this because I know you've got a lot of experience doing this. And like I mentioned before, this is just a topic that is so needed in the industry right now. So let's kind of start off just paint the picture of what we're talking about here. I mean, in terms of when you are able to successfully enlist your whole entire team in the same vision, you're all rowing in that same direction. um, we're speaking marketing generally, but I think this is applicable to pretty much anything in your
I think it
practice.
is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when that is occurring, when everyone's firing on all cylinders, what do you feel? What does that look like from a practice standpoint? What does it look like from a patient standpoint, doctor standpoint?
Yeah. There's definitely variations of it. And, to have 100% buy-in at all times is something we all shoot for, but is pretty naive to even think that's
Yeah,
possible, I think. And so that's kind of one. I hate to say that the way to reach your goals is to lower your standards, but in certain aspects, it's developing more of a realistic idea about what success looks like, or what the end result looks like. And we talk about this a lot, and with our team, it's we just call it rowing in the same direction. If it doesn't make the boat go faster, I forget the book that came from, but if it doesn't make the boat go faster, what are we doing, right? And we
yeah,
we have a little custom emoji we put on Slack with the boat and things like that. So
yeah,
we're talking about those things. People know exactly the topic, or at least the theme. So it really looks like people kind of working together,
mm,
and and kind of really with a shared goal. really. I think we've done a lot of pushes, whether it's marketing or, develop a new protocol, or we're just bringing in a different kind of scanner right now to the all three offices right now, kind of an additional scanner for the offices. And so that's the idea, is to kind of scan every patient that comes in. We
Yeah.
needed a scanner in the office for that. That's a big push, right?
Yeah.
That's a little more time on the front office. That's a little more time on the treatment coordinators, because they're going to use that for treatment planning, things like that. And so I think really getting the team to understand what the benefits are and why you're doing something. And money is not always the biggest driver, but we've started to learn. I think it's time, honestly, with this generation right now.
Yeah.
Times in our practices, but figuring out what kind of shared reward, or whether it's just practice success, or whether it's something actually personal, or whether it's kind of a shared pot of money or time or an extra day off. We've even done things like that, but kind of figuring out what those things are, what makes these people really get motivated to do something. So and then you got to talk about it,
Yeah.
is the thing. And I think we learned, and I'm sure a lot of other people have learned early on, you know set it and forget it does not work.
Mm.
It just doesn't work. And you get really frustrated, like, hey, we just went over this last month, or we just went over this last year,
Yeah.
whatever it was. And if you don't, beat the drum, as we call it, it's kind of like the old Viking ships are right there beating the drum.
Yeah.
Yeah, the oars. But when you beat the drum constantly in those situations, they're gonna fizzle out.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. And they do in my life. It's just human nature. These aren't people trying to sabotage anything.
Yeah.
It's just the way people operate. So it's kind of figuring out those little parts and pieces. In our practice, at least, that's what it's been. It's by no means uh a perfect system, and we're not
Yeah.
figuring it out perfectly every single time. We're making mistakes just like everyone else. Like, I'm sure you are, Mark, too, and figuring it out as you go. And that's simple as that.
Yeah, and that's important to remember, I mean, just that it will be it's always kind of a work in progress, in
Yeah.
that regard where it's never a perfect, version or anything like that. It's just because, like you said, we're all human and we all adapt, we're all changing, we have life circumstances that are changing. And yeah, that's important to remember that it will never be absolutely perfect. But I like what you said too, Stent, because there are people that are motivated differently, and
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the challenges that when we're talking about this topic that people have is that they just want to do a one size fits all kind of blanket approach, and that just doesn't work. Unfortunately, I wish it did, but it doesn't. You need to kind of dive in and figure out how they're motivated and what's going to make most sense for them so that they can get on board.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but as we were thinking about this topic, I thought of, all those companies outside of dental that do this really, really well. I mean, many of us have had experiences at Disney. I've
Yep.
told this on the podcast a couple of times, but had one of my friends that went down to Disney World, and she was, they have fireworks every night, and so she was watching the fireworks, had a great time. The next day, she gets asked by one of the employees, well, how was it, and everything like that. She said, oh, it was amazing. Where we were sitting was great. The only problem was there was like this weird branch, and so we couldn't see everything. And then next night they go back to watch fireworks, and that branch is gone. Like it's already been cut down, and I mean, it's
Yeah.
just been moved, and it's just taking initiative to have those types of experiences. And I think that's a good example of really what we're trying to accomplish when we're getting everyone on board, where everyone has that authority to really make someone's day. And another example, I can't remember where I read it, but it's in the Ritz Carlton.
Mhm. Mhm.
They empower all of their employees from housekeepers to managers to they have the ability to uh, what is it? It's like they spend up to $2,000 a day to try and make
Yeah. Look
someone's
at that.
day per guest per day. And and that obviously takes a lot of trust and I'm sure a lot of training, but just that idea that everyone has the ability to go out of their way and surprise a patient in this regard and really make their day. It doesn't have to be a spend or anything like that. It can just be something that surprises them and makes them feel really welcome. And that's because sometimes we just get so into our daily rituals that it's hard to think beyond that. But if we do, then that's where it can really go from really just kind of a job to something that you're really feeling rewarded and fulfilled with. So um I think that's kind of what we're trying to, talk
Yeah.
about when when we're thinking about it. What do you see too, Sten? When
Yeah, I was a couple things came up, and I love what you're saying there, but I think not no but, in addition to I the the Disney thing, the with Ritz-Carlton, you see, the old Zappos, right? Things like
yeah,
that. You can hear these names over and over about the customer service, things like that. That was a culture that they
yeah,
built around it, and I think that's something that can endure as long as it's beating the drum. But there's a culture of service there. And I think that's really, really important for that. Like, when people get that job, I don't never worked at Disney or Ritz Carlton.
yeah,
My guess is that they're beating that into your mindset
yeah,
from day one. And this
yeah,
is, everyone following that, everyone's rowing in the same direction. And so you're not seeing a couple people over here that are doing a little bit, a couple people here that are doing it really well, and then a couple people that are completely disengaged. You really get this entire team to kind of get everyone on board, not just the manager, not just the higher ups, right? And I think that's a huge thing. And I think when I start to see little bits of that in my practice, where it's not my COO or not me or not one of my doctors kind of telling someone how to do something. It's the other team, right? It's
yeah,
it's them getting together and actually, saying, hey, well, this is not how we do it here. There's a reason for this, and they kind of understand the mindset. But another thing that came up there was just autonomy too, with the Ritz
yeah,
Carlton thing you said. There's an allure and kind of an image of you know that people want autonomy in their work, and I think they do. I think what they say they want as far as autonomy and what actually drives people as far as autonomy, I think are two very different things. A lot of people say I want autonomy means they really just want to do whatever they want and not work sometimes.
yeah,
Those are not the right fits. But those are people can be, can be changed and kind of get in line
yeah,
with that. But giving people kind of, hey, this is your zone, we call it in our practice, or this is your area, this is your baby, make sure that this is done really well to our standard, to your standard, things like that. And kind of giving people I guess the accountability more than autonomy. But we've really noticed that really pays off too.
yeah. That's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah, giving them some leash, giving them some, yeah, ownership in that,
Yeah,
and I think that goes a long way. I mean, how I feel like a lot of things that I do in business, I relate back to raising kids, and it's like that
100%.
with
Yeah.
teenagers. It's you want to just lay down the law and be like, here, you can't do this. You can do this, but you can't do all these things, right?
Right.
But I found that the more leash I give, I've got all girls, more leash I give my daughters, then the better off it generally is. I mean, yeah, they still make plenty of mistakes like we all do, but that trust is so important. I mean,
Yeah.
if you can go to them and say, you know what, I trust you to make a good decision, then that really weighs. And I don't want to mean to sound bad, but it weighs heavy on people, and they don't want to just completely develop that trust, because that's such an important thing, and drives a lot of actions and thoughts for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point. What
Yeah.
do you see in terms of patients, when you see everyone kind of going rowing in that same direction, how does that look from a patient perspective? What are some of the things that you see, or maybe the things that they say when you're all rowing together?
Yeah. What I notice pretty simply is just when you don't have people, you have a new hire, a new front office or something like that, and they're brand new, things like that. We'll get this comment about, can I talk to a manager? Can I talk to a doctor? Can I talk to someone else? Things like that. And I get it, it's not, generally it's never, not never, but it's not too often, snarky. It's just something they just want to get something done, right? And they feel like they're not getting anywhere with a new hire because they're slower, they're whatever reason. Um, you just don't see that as much
Yeah.
when everyone's kind of rowing in the right direction. And I think, when people kind of get off the rails a little bit and they kind of maybe aren't having the mindset or the culture in the forefront, then, we get that sometimes where, hey, they just wanted to they speak to a manager instead. Hey, can I solve this for you? How can I fix this? Right. And so people are kind of going out of the way to say, okay, even though maybe I don't know exactly what's going on, I'm going to fix this for you. And I'm going to take the bull by the horns and do this.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I definitely notice when you get everyone rowing, or at least, the kind of teams like that rowing in the right direction. Um, and it's pretty cool to see, because the other thing about that is, with a new hire, obviously they're not going to make all the right decisions. Neither, no one is. But making sure that they have all the tools. I have a mentor that calls it omission or commission, right? I mean, is this a sin of omission or
Yeah.
commission? Meaning,
Yeah.
did you not have the resources? Was something
Yeah.
omitted, or did you commit something? Did you commit a crime? Right.
Yeah.
But knowing that if it is, something they should know, that we have a little breakout and we kind of figure it and we right the ship a little bit. And if it's a commission, making sure that they know exactly kind of where to get that resource, who to talk to, things like that, and making sure it's a kind of a supportive environment too for that. Because I think the one fear with when you said that people definitely notice is when they get afraid of making a mistake, it's because they get afraid of the repercussions, right? And the repercussions don't have to be severe. They just need to be supportive in our experience. And so that really translates a lot. I feel like that translates a lot into the patient care and kind of getting people behind their zone, their accountability, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That is so cool, and that's, I similar goals in my, with my agency, just trying to bring those every team
Hmm.
member on board and,
Yep.
find those positions where they can make the most impact and really do what they're uniquely qualified to do. Um, and that's such a cool, when you see that certainly on the client patient side, but then, yeah, now switching a little bit back to the team side,
Hmm.
you see those people and how much more they're able to contribute,
Yeah.
and so what are you seeing on that front in terms of, yeah, their job satisfaction? Because I know that's always a challenge, right? In dental, they're being lured away by these other jobs that oftentimes don't require them to have as much responsibility or do as much work,
Yeah.
and so for the same sometimes the same amount of pay. So it's that it seems like a big piece to that employment or the yeah, just staffing problem. But yeah, what are you seeing on the staff side or the team side when everyone's kind of cohesive like that?
Yeah, that's a huge point. I think that's kind of the crux of a lot of this, what we're talking about too, because if we all had 30-year employees and,
Yeah.
everyone was going on vacation together and been knowing each
Yeah.
other from their kids and everything, you're gonna get that culture baked in. It may or may not be the exact culture you want,
Yeah.
but it's a culture nonetheless, right? And, I think I forget who said it, but, culture is what people do when you're not looking, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
It's good.
um but we have a problem in every industry, but in mainly in dentistry. I think right now the average clock on a team member, I think is like 1.6 years, 1.7 years, something like that. It's
Yeah.
really low right now. And, we have the same problem everyone else does. We have some team members that have been there 3, 4, 5, 7, 8 years. Some that are gonna be with us for a year or 2, right? And I think our average right now is somewhere in the 3-year range, but,
Mm.
we have a lot of turnover, especially with the younger generation. It's not bad. A lot
Yeah.
of them are going back to school. We happen to have 2 or 3 that are going back to school right now. I really wanna encourage that. I think it's great. We've had, 3 or 4 go to dental school,
Yeah.
a ton of them go to hygiene school, things like that, and, yeah, we definitely want to encourage it. They're not gonna come stay, work for us just to
Yeah.
skip dental school, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but they, that becomes a problem with training because if you feel like right when you get someone on board, right when you get them to really, understand the culture and drive the culture and kind of bring people up in the culture, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
And so, how do you create that? And I think this is where really making sure that culture and the message and everything is just really cohesive. Losing a whole staff all at once is rebuilding a culture time, right?
Yeah.
Moving someone here, someone there, things like that. That can, when you get those new hires to kind of backfill and replace them, if your culture is strong, and at times it has been for us, and at times it has not been, but if your culture is strong, they're going to kind of fit into that Disney or that Ritz Carlton situation, right? I'm not saying that we're that level, but I mean, shit, steps to the
Yeah.
imagination, but it's a point that, it's easy for them to recognize what's happening here if everyone else is kind of doing it at the same time. And if people are not, they're going to look through. We have a first 400 training because we really make a big push in the 2 months to really get people kind of on board and be a contributing member of the team. But if they look at all this training that they're doing in the first 2 months, um, you know, and they're looking around saying, "Hey, this person's not doing that this way. They're doing something a little bit different over here," things like that. Then that culture erodes, right? And then it's like, okay, what is really going on here? And it's a little bit stressful on people. So it's definitely something that we talk about all the time because we just have to be ready for it. You can't. build a protocol around people just staying in your practice or a
Yeah.
plan. That's not a strategy. It's not reality, right? They're just not going to do it, right? You can have doctors leave sometimes,
Yeah.
uh, and that's painful, but you gotta kind of pick up and keep going. And if your doctor team, if your doctor culture is really strong, the next person you bring in is going to kind of see how that works. So, that's something we're constantly doing. But I think building a system around people leaving has been really beneficial for us instead of trying to fight
Mhm.
them leaving, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just not possible. So, that's been our strategy and just kind of building the culture and really making sure it's consistent. We're constantly working on it, and everyone knows that we're constantly working on it too.
Yeah, and that's an intentional mindset that you adopt, you know? I mean, I remember listening to a speaker down at a conference in Vegas, and he worked for I wanna say he was worked for LinkedIn or one of the big social media companies, and yeah, same thing. They would have turnover all the time, you
Yeah.
know, and but his whole approach was, yeah, you can it's yeah, it's difficult on the one hand, but on the other hand, you're benefiting from all these people, especially in over there where he was in Silicon Valley, that was people coming from one tech company to the other with different experiences, and they're bringing all that into, their company and kind of fusing it with different ideas and stuff like that. And so I thought, wow, that's a great idea or great way to look at it. It's doesn't make it easier, I mean,
No.
it probably makes it maybe even harder, but I love your point too. It seems like it's a conscious mindset that you're choosing to adopt every single time because, yeah, you're probably wanting to default and just be like, "Oh, I'm never," there's never going away, and so
Yeah.
that can be discouraging at times. Um, but yeah, how I guess my question is that in my head is how often are you seeing doctors just not choosing to deal with that because it does present a challenge, I mean, you're trying to it takes a lot to try and intentionally build a culture, I mean, it's
Mhm.
a lot of forethought, it's a lot of, okay, what's our values? What's our mission? How do I relate that to people and articulate that to our team? Do you find many practices that do not just by they're having, like you said, a default culture just because they don't really think about it a whole lot beyond
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I would say most businesses, most culture is kind of that unintentional culture, right?
yeah,
Yeah, every business, every family, every organization has a culture. It may be what they intentionally built or whatever just kind of happened, right? Yeah, everyone has a culture. And if that culture is just, a you know, big back door of employees that are constantly coming in and out, that's your culture, right?
yeah,
That's just the way it goes. So, but on your question about the doctors, yeah, we talk about this a lot. Um, and I think, young doctors, sometimes we don't hire people right out of school, but generally we will, but we haven't in the past. But generally leadership and kind of taking ownership of certain things is a little bit daunting to doctors,
mhm,
especially in the early years. And I think, there's a little bit of this, well, I don't want to, get in the leadership. I don't want them to think of me as the boss. I don't want to, all these different things.
yeah.
And it's not everyone, it's not across the board, but you do get those kind of messages. But I think, yeah, it's really important for whether it's a young doctor that's an associate or an owner doctor. I've really found that you really need to set the example. And because they're always gonna be looking at you. Everyone's always looking up and seeing
Yeah,
kind of, what you're doing. Are you following the protocols? How are you treating the patients? How are you, doing breakouts with the team to kind of
yeah,
correct things that aren't done right, right? Is this a supportive environment? Is that the way I'm gonna teach or that to coach the person kind of that's, I'm bringing up, things like that. So it's really, really hard, and I have to remember it too because there's, plenty of times when I'm in the office, and I'm back in the office a little bit right now just covering for a doctor. Um, people come to me, "Hey, say, can we do it this way or can we schedule something this way?" And I'm looking at it going, "Well, yeah, we can, but that's kind of against everything that we've talked about as our culture and our protocols, things like that." And just having that backbone to say no. And when you want to say yes, because you can just kind of work around it.
yeah,
But the more times that you know, change things or have an outlier situation, people start to think that every situation's an outlier, and then all the protocols just kind of go out the window. So I think it's really, really important for the doctors we tell our doctors, we want you to clock in, clock out. We want you to kind of leave your work home, leave your work at work, excuse me, your
yeah,
home at home, things like that as much as possible. Right. Um, but that doesn't mean that you're not a leader. When you got that degree, no matter where you go and which organization, you're going to have a team that's kind of supporting you, and so you are the leader, whether you like it or not. That doesn't mean you had to call in payroll or go to a bank for loans and all these different things. It just means that when you're in the office, you have to look and act and operate like someone, like an example in the
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah. So if you were someone, I mean, if you're, let's say, talking with a doctor, practice owner, and they're just, yeah, getting into building a culture, what, just kind of some initial steps, what would you recommend? I know that's a daunting thing, I mean, do you start with kind of your values, your mission, or just kind of a simple vision of, hey, this is what I want our practice to be known for? What would you kind of counsel? How would you counsel, for
Yeah,
practice owner?
I don't, I can't, I can't tell you exactly how to do it. I'm not going to be I'm not naive in thinking that I'm a guru in that because I'm definitely not. Um, but we did the classic kind of start with our values and start with our kind of mission and all that, and it was pretty interesting. We were on an interview. We were interviewing a doctor the other day, and we bring all our other partner doctors on the calls if they're available. They can hop in and kind of just do
Yeah.
a group with them. It's really nice. Um, and I forget how it came up, but somehow it came up about the core values and kind of what it is, and the doctor, our associate doctor, just kind of rattled them off.
Yeah.
We went to our break room kind of
Yeah.
wall with some things up there and things like that, and just kind of rattled them off faster than I could have, and I was just a little tear in my eye a little bit. It was a pretty good moment.
Yeah.
Um, but what we really try to do is kind of, whether you call them core values or mission, whatever you want to call them, and I won't get into that, all the woo woo stuff, but you need some kind of an operating system or an operating kind of light, and a lighthouse per se. And so we chose to kind of pick very unique core values, whatever you want to call them, and just kind of build off that. And we really wanted to kind of stay away from the, integrity, hard work, and all the, kind of cliche, names that you kind
Yeah.
of threw out, or words that you threw out. So, we kind of really wanted to focus on just constantly improving. So one of ours is better than yesterday, BTY. We have emojis for it and everything like
Yeah.
that. The team loves. We have balance, gonna leave the work at work and leave the home life at home type situation, but you need to kind of separate the two as much as possible. It's definitely a core value for us. And then we call it power to the pathway. It's a little play on our practice name, Pathway Dental.
Yeah.
Uh, but essentially means that this is the protocol and everyone sticks to it. And if we break in the pathway, and we have this a lot of times, if there's a break in the pathway, you know, things go off the rails, right? Even just a little bit. If someone's not operating under one strict, kind of way they're supposed to do something, no one else can really support them because they don't really know how to kind of fill in, or they don't know what step you're on, things like that. If you're going rogue, you're kind of on your own, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we've designed. But making sure people understand those, and I think that was the first part of us, and we really wanted a culture that wasn't really just kind of grind and work hard and under all costs. It was really kind of this balance, and so we really wanted to focus on that and making sure people know we get people out at, we say 3:59, you got to end on time, and they have it all on the Slack and everything like that. And so that means that if you guys are done, go home.
Yeah.
Don't wait around to the last minute. Get your stuff done. Get out of there early. We have a little bit of time at the end of the day after patients. So if you get all that stuff done, get out of here. We don't want people just kind of hanging around and hanging after work and things like that, because I think that builds up. Where it's like, oh, I got to stay and work 30 minutes an hour late. That kind of builds up to sour the culture a little bit. And so we
Mhm.
really want, hey, lights off, shut down, lock door, you guys are out of here. And I think we really encourage the doctors just to leave. You guys
Yeah.
are done. Your notes are done. The team doesn't want you there anymore. Just get out. And so I don't care if it's 30 minutes early, just leave.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of motivates people. Hey, the doctor left. We got to get our stuff together. Let's go. Let's
Yeah.
get out of here. So that was kind of
And I think that
a
shows a lot of trust too, just saying, "Hey, we trust that you're gonna get your stuff done. We're not
yeah.
gonna look over your shoulder the whole time."
Yeah. No, I mean, they know what they need to do. They have all the checklists and everything like that. So they get them. But developing kind of little culture things. What's important to we just decided kind of what's important to us. What do we want to our team to to kind of feel when they work here. How are we going to talk about this in the recruiting when we're in an interview with a front office, back office, doctor, whatever it is? What are the type of things that people would really that we think would attract the right type of person for our practice? Because I mean, different core values attract different people, right? And
Yeah.
so we wanted, hey, if this is the way we want to build it, how is this going to attract people into the office and hopefully get a pipeline of people that really want to work for us because
Yeah.
of these core values, because of this reputation, things like that.
Yeah.
So just
Absolutely.
just kind of figuring out what that is for you, and you got to start talking about it.
Hmm.
And you got to start doing it, and it's not something that you just put a sign up in the wall in the break room, even though we've done things like that. You gotta operate every single day with them, and I haven't noticed a quick fix, but I think it can be quicker than a lot of people think.
Yeah.
You start to kind of turn around, wake up one day and like, oh, well, that happened. That was really cool. That might have been the culture building a little bit, right? And but again, it's the constant beating of the drum, constant, effort that goes into it, and over time, it's who you are.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. And things evolve over time, and you'll
Yeah,
m- create some of the things that I want to point out too is just some of the language that you use that's specific to your practice. I mean, you've got some of those phrases that as soon as you say those, then it's people understand immediately what you're talking about, and I think that's cool. It's kind of your own little jargon, your own little lingo there, and that's powerful. I mean, the people
yeah,
kind of rally around certain things like that. I've always believed that words have carry a very innate power to them, especially when used properly. And that's a great example of how to do that. We do that kind of in my agency. So you'll see my logo is was a wolf. You see my hat in the background. I've always got things all over the place, but we'll use different images of wolves to showcase some of those traits that we're talking about, whether it's kind of relentless, pursuit of excellence and things like that, where they just keep going. You don't get
yeah,
deterred. If things they're not thinking about, "Oh, I messed up last week or 2 weeks ago," and they're trying to catch food, they just keep going until they get it, and it's these visuals that make it easier to grasp what you're trying to say, and trying to get across. So I think that's cool, and that's really kind of the fun part too. That's building the culture. It's hard to, I mean, you want it all ready to go right away, but it just takes time. So,
yeah. It does, and it's frustrating because I mean, I'm a quick start, whatever you want to call it, but I mean, I
yeah,
want it's yesterday.
I
It's
know.
I think we all do. A lot of us do.
Yeah,
I love what you said about the language too. We've always talked about that, and the culture needs a language, right?
yeah,
And I think I forget there's a book all about that, but I think that's a really huge part. And it's the unique language kind of makes me and makes our team, I feel like they're kind of part of a secret club, right? Like, oh,
yeah,
they know
yeah,
acronyms, they know all these, we got all these custom emojis, and I talked about custom phrases, things like that are kind of thrown around. Um, the team names all the equipment. So
yeah,
we get Daniel and Roberto and everything. So if you don't know the names of this equipment, right, you're
yeah.
not in the loop, right? People want to be in the loop. So,
That's
but
funny.
I really like that you said about the language, because I think that's a huge one. It really is a huge one. And when you get to people to repeat it and say it,
Yeah,
and you hear them it is, or you just have someone go by and go, well, P2P, you
yeah,
kind of,
that's awesome. So let me ask you a few questions about, I mean, we talked about this earlier, but about, um, incentives, with your team. What are, we talked about, I mean, there's different types, right? Different strokes for different folks kind of phrase, but what how would you start that? I mean, if you were counseling or making a recommendation to another practice owner and they're just getting started doing that, because it does make a lot of sense. I think, logically, oh yeah, I mean, provide some incentives, they're going to work harder, but logistically, that's not, or, in practice, that can be a little bit different. What have you found? What are some good ways to just get started and kind of test out the waters with some incentives, keep your team motivated?
yeah. And this is, I can tell you what we've done, what we've made mistakes, and what's worked a little bit. Um, but I'm by no means an HR guru in the motivation
Mm,
of the human race. Um, we have a bonus system, and it's essentially just a profit sharing system. We call it a profit sharing. Um, program. And the reason we kind of changed the name is because I think bonus kind of sounds like it's willy nilly. You can kind of give it
Yeah.
whenever. And the profit sharing is more kind of, hey, we're a group. This is
Yeah.
the bit of the business.
I
When the
love that.
business does well, we all do well, things like that. And so it's kind of joins them in that row in the right direction, row in the same direction as everyone
Yeah.
else. So, including the owners and the doctors and things like that. And so simple, we can get into numbers, but we just set it at basically a goal, obviously a little pad after overhead and, I get paid too.
Yeah.
And then and then percentage kind of goes in a pot and people split it and things like that. Different people split it to different degrees. We have kind of these mini managers we call point people that kind of manage zones. They don't manage offices.
Okay.
They'll get a little bit more things like that. And so there's a benefit to kind of, move up the ladder a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, one of the benefits, I should say. There's a lot of other ones we think. But that's one thing, and that's not unique. That's pretty pretty common across the board. But the one thing we have noticed that really works is you know we thought about kind of these long running additional bonuses where we had new patients and we can a certain number of new patients we'll do $50 or whatever it is, things like that. And it really never worked that well. And I don't know why, but I think it kind of went stale, to be
Okay.
perfectly honest. And I think things kind of, they run their course, it's like, oh, are we going to get it or not? And they felt like they didn't have control over it, and I think that was a little bit of a mistake. But I think where we have really noticed a big difference is with these kind of month long or 2 month long pushes
Mhm.
and kind of switching them up frequently and just based on kind of what the practice needs are. Again, I don't think this is earth shattering stuff, but it's just
Yeah.
what's worked for us. For example, we've done like a social media campaign or something like that, and so um, we've done things where the person who submits the winning social media post,
Mm.
meaning they get the most likes or whatever it is, um, they got $100 or something like that. I forget what it was,
Yeah.
but it was kind of like it was their idea. They made the little video, they made the montage, whatever it is. I'm by no means a social media expert, so
Yeah.
um, I'm probably using all the bad terms and all
No,
the
you're
sounding like I'm 80 years old, but
no, you're
um, you know those things have gone really well. People get really excited about them,
yeah.
and it helps the practice kind of get new content, right? And
Most are afraid to do that, most of them don't wanna touch social media, so that's a really good idea.
yeah, so those have worked really well, and we've done a number of different pushes, things like that. And so I think with the scanner thing that we're talking about now, which is going to be kind of our next push for the next month or two, I'm sure there's going to be a kind of a competition or something like that around that, and seeing who can kind of get the most scans, who can get the best scan, fastest scan, things like that. So, I think it's whatever we've noticed that we're working on that's really going to kind of create a little bit of momentum and something we prioritize, create a little competition or a little bonus around it. I think that's really helped out a lot, because we can always recycle them. You can always do that same um, game or competition. You can do it 6 months later. You don't have to do it, never again, or
Right.
you have to do it for 12 months in a row.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of the ticket, and making it kind of this one time thing, create a little excitement around it. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I know. I just, I'm working on that on my side too. Is just, yeah, what is it that makes these team members excited to come and show up and go out of their way to, really wow a customer and stuff. So yeah, it's a fun game. It's a challenging one sometimes.
Well, it's fun. It's fun sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, but that's just it though. It's, a lot of people and myself included, find myself getting really frustrated. Or Jennifer, who I think you spoke with too a
Yeah.
little bit at the beginning. She runs the show, but she's a ninja. But we find ourselves kind of in these meetings together, getting really frustrated that someone's not caring about something as much as we do. And that's naive.
Yeah. And
And I think we need to remind ourselves, hey, these people are, this might be a 25-year-old person or, a 20-year-old person. Or, I mean, they might have had 3 different jobs in the last 10 years or whatever it is, and, to have them kind of come to a business and care about it as much as the owners, it's just not going to happen. And so kind of really looking at, okay, what do they care about? How can we get their motivation in line enough with ours to kind of help them, really make a difference in our group. and things like that. And so I think that's just it, is you kind of playing these little, not games, but you're really constantly trying to tweak the motivation aspects of the bonuses and the competitions, things like that, to get people, find out what people motivates them. Because it's not on, hey, we want to grow to 5 practices in the next 3 years. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't motivate people, right?
Right.
I don't even know that, hey, we want to, add another 500,000 to the yearly income or something like that. Whatever it is, that doesn't motivate people as much. They don't really care about that, right? How does it really affect them? And so I think finding those things and finding those little fun competitions has been pretty good.
So that kind of raises another question that I had. What have you found, Stan, as far as going, when you're trying to kind of paint the picture of the importance of marketing to team members? And because, yeah, it's a lot of times they don't look at those numbers and think, oh man, we were down 25% in new patients this last couple of months. What can we do to get it up? Some of them do, and that's great, but not everyone gets that. And
Right.
so, what, how do you, and also, too, I'm going to lump this in there because I think it's also part of the equation where they don't, some of them feel like marketing is just sales, and they don't want to be selling. So how do you overcome that, or how do you talk or address that situation with team members?
Yeah, I think that's a big issue, and I also think the issue is they feel like they don't have as much control, right? And so what can I really do in the office to see a boost in new patients, right?
Yeah,
You and I know that there's a lot of people can do, but I think they view it a little bit like it's not really in their control, right?
like they're handcuffed. Yeah, they don't.
They're handcuffed a little bit, right? Hey, we can do everything right. We can have the best social media. We can have ask for the most referrals. We can get the most reviews, whatever it is. Um, and it doesn't really change it, right? Or then you have a, up and down month, and it's kind of these ebbs and flows that are completely out of their control, whether it's the economy or politics or whatever's going on at the time of year. So that's I think the biggest push. I think that's where finding these little parts and pieces that people care about or can care about, and giving them a reason to care about, knowing that those are gonna boost new patients or boost reviews or boost whatever it is. And I think it's just finding these smaller bite-sized pieces, like, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say. You know, like I talked about the social media posts where we've
Yeah,
had review pushes or things like that, and finding these things that, they can actually see a benefit to. They can see a
yeah,
change. They can see an improvement on, even if it's not new patients. We can look at that as an operational side on the leadership side, and know that, hey, that push really drove a few new patients, or drove some more buzz in the online or whatever it is. But they don't really have an awareness of that. And I think finding someone that loves marketing is really nice. It's fun.
yeah,
But again, then you're holding out for this unicorn person
yeah,
to fill a role in order to get something done, instead of building a protocol around the team that you have and the team that you want to recruit, and kind of, motivate in that way. And I think that's kind of the issue. But yeah, I agree. I don't like marketing as much. Not that I don't like it, I just don't understand it as much. So we have people around us and teams, and Jennifer, who can kind of take the bull by the horns and do it. But I know enough to kind of guide those competitions and guide those
mhm,
little pushes too. So
yeah, yeah. And I think yeah, it's nice to have, certain team. Yeah, yeah. You want to kind of find those people that are excited about that, and can
yeah.
take the reins, and like you said, um, and I think too that is a challenge too, is just in terms of people view it differently. So trying to help level set a little bit that, marketing, and this is the way I kind of describe it too, where marketing is more really about just serving and educating than anything else. I mean, I think sometimes we get lost. We lump sales and marketing in the same thing, and there's certainly a lot of overlap between those two. But the way I see it is, we're not naive enough to think that we're the best fit for everyone, and so there's a select audience that we're really good fit for, and we can knock it out of the park every time. That's really trying who we're trying to cater to, and just educate them on their options. And more often than not, when you provide that education, you help them see, okay, I can go down this road, or I can go down this road, or I can not do anything at all. And this is what's likely going to happen. A lot of times they'll make the right decision, I think. It's just they don't want to feel pressured or anything like that, obviously. But yeah, I think the more we can lean into that service kind of mindset and
Mhm.
just help them understand that, hey, we have the experience and the knowledge and the expertise to provide these recommendations so that they can then make the best decision possible. And then we kind of let them choose, and I've found that worked really well for us. Have you kind of seen anything similar with your practices or your patients?
Yeah, I mean, that's just that's culture. That's your culture.
Yeah.
I think it just gets back to that, and it's it sounds like you're kind of creating a situation where there's a little bit of autonomy, right? It's like, hey, this is what we need to get done, and we're going to go over here and do our thing because we got a lot of other stuff to do.
Yeah.
You need to get your stuff done, and let me know when you need help. But I'm not here to babysit, and I think that's your culture. I think that's great, and we definitely are trying to kind of embed that in our culture as well. But yeah, it's it's a constant battle.
Mhm. Yeah.
All of this is, and it's I hate to say battle, and that's probably not the right word, but it's a constant thing you're working on, right? You're just
Yeah.
constantly, I you know, I don't want to make it sound like we're against or we're working against our team. That's absolutely not the case. We're trying to work with them, but um, you know, it's sometimes you do feel like you're working against them a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
getting out of that cycle and really seeing the bigger picture and and just understanding what human nature is and how people operate and realizing that, hey, if something's not going well, you got to look in the mirror first. You got to look at your own
Yeah.
culture. How have
Yeah.
I been operating that's allowed some of these things to happen?
Mhm.
I think too often we get a lot of people that, something goes wrong and everyone points fingers everywhere. But if we look in the mirror first, because the easiest thing to fix is ourselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's much harder to fix someone else. I
Yeah.
think we can fix ourselves. That's the solution. Just do it.
Yeah.
Do that with a
That's
snap
right.
of a finger, right? Just fix the way you're operating.
Yeah, that's so true, and I think that's part of the reason sometimes I don't dive into this more is because I know I'm the problem. I know it's usually me that's causing the bottleneck or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be,
Yeah.
but
It's
that's so
usually what
true.
it is.
There's a big, huge trickle down effect once we do, and it helps to kind of establish that culture that we're always learning,
Yeah.
and if you can do that from the top down, then people will realize that it's okay to make mistakes, as long as we're learning from that and moving forward. So, as we're kind of winding down, Stan, what would you say as far as action steps or little action items that people are trying to get their team more involved generally? Um, any last kind of thoughts? I know we've kind of gone over a lot of them, but anything that you feel like we've maybe left out?
You know, um, there's a lot that, this could be something Mark, you and I talk about for hours and hours and hours,
Yeah.
but, I know we don't have that much time, but there's a lot of details here. And I think, you know, there's a lot of things that we've done that I think we've worked and kind of getting team on board with some marketing pushes, social media pushes. We have channels and things like that where they're doing it every day. And some of those things have kind of worked. So these little nuanced tips and tricks and things like that really do make a big difference sometimes. But I really do think that the best thing people can do is just start to lead by example
Yeah.
and kind of really show people that, hey, if you're doing that, I'm gonna show you how it's done. I'm gonna show you how this accountability thing works. I'm gonna show you how this culture thing works. I'm gonna show you how, this autonomy and all this other things, how this operates. And I think really just assuming people are gonna fill the role. I think instead of micromanaging, just saying, like you said, Mark, I thought that was a really good point. Just I got my own thing to do. You go do your thing and let me know when it's done. And that's kind of giving people the reins a little bit is huge. And so that would be my suggestion. That's not an easy solution, I know. And it's not been easy for me. But yeah, it's they're looking at you as a doctor, as an office leader, as they're looking at you to kind of guide how they operate and what they how they view the culture and how they view the systems.
Yeah. I know whether you like it or not, that's kind of how
They're
how
looking
they view it.
they're looking around. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Even
they're watching everything you do. Yep.
Yeah, I know, totally. Well, that's a good way to end it because it's, yeah, your practice is gonna go where you go, in terms of
Yeah.
how much you wanna invest and develop yourself. So, yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, okay, if anyone is listening that wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Um, yeah, we're on all the social media and stuff like that. we can, well, I'll leave my email and all that in there. We have info at Pathway Dental Solutions, excuse me, connect at pathwaydentalsolutions.com kind of, we've helped some people with on a consulting basis a little bit. And our office is Pathway Dental Group in Santa Barbara. And you can definitely get a hold of us. I can leave my email as well too, Mark, for
Okay.
anyone.
Yeah, I'll link that up in the show notes in case anyone wants to reach out and learn more about what you guys are doing or has any questions maybe about this particular topic. But
It,
yeah, Stan, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time.
it was fun. Thanks, Mark. Yeah.